Buen día, espero que todos estén bien, que hoy quiero repasar sobre el pretérito. Ustedes han aprendido el presente del indicativo hasta ahora. So until now, everything that you have learned has been under the present, what we call the present indicative. And you've always known it as the present tense. But now we're going to move into the past tense. In Spanish, there are two past tenses, the preterite and the imperfect. We'll talk about the imperfect at the very end of the semester. We spend a lot of time on the preterite because there are so many different irregular things that happen. So let's get started. Okay, el pretérito. Okay. Basically, the preterite is used to describe completed actions or states in the past. Okay. These are things that are equivalated many times, not 100%, but many times with the ed form in English, like walked, talked. But we have irregulars like ran, swam, taught. And so that's the preterite. It's a completed action or a state in the past. Now, I like to divide the preterite into what I call the regular preterite and the irregular preterite. In this lesson, we're going to focus on what is considered the regular preterite, and this includes some spelling changes that happen. Now, first, there are some expressions that are commonly used with the preterite, words like anoche, anteayer, ayer, de repente, desde, hasta, como desde el lunes hasta el viernes, pasado, como el verano pasado, la semana pasada, el año pasado, una vez, dos veces, and you can even go on like tres veces, cuatro veces, and ya. So a couple examples, for example, ayer estudié el pretérito para la clase. So yesterday I studied the preterite for class. La semana pasada ella me compró una blusa. So last week she bought me a blouse. And so these are both completed actions in the past. Now, to form the preterite, we have new endings. Now, AR verbs have their own endings. ER verbs and IR verbs are going to share the same endings. And you'll notice that the yo and the el, ella, usted, these are forms that have an accent mark. So for AR verbs, we have haste, o, amos, aron. And for ER-IR verbs, we have iste, io, imos, ieron. And you'll notice that the and the the o and io all have accent marks. And if you notice for el, ella, usted, the accent mark falls on the o in all cases. Okay. Los shoe verbs. Now, we're not going to talk about IR verbs at this moment, but AR verbs and ER verbs that have this stem change or the shoe verb in the present tense do not have that in the preterite tense. In other words, they are regular in the preterite tense. Okay, so a verb, for example, like cerrar, which is E to IE, in the present, la tienda cierra a las 6. In the preterite, there's no change. La tienda cerró a las 6. Volver, which is O to UE. Carlitos vuelve tarde in el presente. In el pretérito, there's no change. Carlitos volvió tarde. Jugar, which is U to UE. Él juega al fútbol in el presente. En el pretérito, él jugó al fútbol. So we don't see the change there. We will talk about, in the next lesson, about IR verbs. Okay. For right now, AR verbs, ER verbs, even if they stem change in the present, they will not stem change in the past. We also, under regular verbs, we have these spelling changers that happen. For example, verbs that end in car, gar, and sar have a spelling change in the first person singular, or the yo form, in the preterite. What happens is the C in car changes to QU. The G in gar becomes a GU. And the Z in sar becomes a C. So we see the examples of buscar becomes busque. Now, probably in your pronunciation, you wouldn't, you don't have to worry about it when you're speaking. Obviously, this is when you are writing. Because if we do not make that change and we leave it as a C, you're actually saying busque instead of busque. And the verb is buscar. We want to maintain that hard k sound. Very similar thing with gar, like llegar, and yo llegué. If we didn't have the u in there, it would be yo llegué. And so we want to maintain that hard g sound, so yo llegué. Empezar, this is just a spelling change. You saw it with the verb, or with the word, the noun lápiz, where when it became plural, lápices, it changed Z to a C. The same kind of thing happens here. So yo empecé. Now, all other forms, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, ellos, ellas, ustedes, those are normal, son normales. So, for example, tú buscaste, Miguel llegó, María y yo empezamos. I hope you get the idea. So that's Grupo Uno. Grupo dos of the spelling changers, these are verbs that end in ER and IR, but they have a root which ends in a vowel. Okay, these also make a spelling change. The I in io and the I in hierron will change to Y. So we see here, leer. So our root ends in a vowel. Creer, our root ends in a vowel. Oír, our root ends in a vowel. So you'll notice creyó, creyeron, leyó, leyeron, oyó, oyeron. And hopefully you noticed as well that the other forms, although they are, quote, normal, they carry an accent mark on the tú form and the nosotros forms, which typically they don't. So creíste, creímos, leíste, leímos, oíste, oímos. They carry accent marks, so they're a little bit different, but they're still considered what I would call regular verbs. Okay. Now the verb ver, your text, VHL, considers ver to be a regular verb, just missing the accent mark. Many other texts will consider it an irregular verb. I tend to consider it an irregular verb, but regardless, the forms are vi, viste, vio, vimos, vieron. Okay. And so the one thing for me that makes it irregular, because all irregulars do not have accent marks. So that's why I consider this an irregular verb. Okay, well, those are the preterite forms. I hoped this helped you out. We will do some practice in class. Nos vemos.